How to start a game of checkers? Which moves are the best and most popular? What are your goals in the opening of the game? I will teach you that in a promotional lesson of my latest course, Practical Checkers, in which I explain over 50 the most common mistakes made in international checkers. Look in the video description and pinned comment to find the link to the course. And now, enjoy watching! Do you want to learn how to play and win at checkers? Visit checkersTV/shop to find the best game courses, ebooks and private lessons with the top coaches. Do you want to play checkers or chess on your phone? I recommend the apps Checkers Online and Chess Online Clash of Kings by CC Games, which have over 100 million downloads. You can find the links in the description. Hi, I'm Damian, but probably you already know that. Welcome to my course Practical Checkers. I'm really glad that together we are going to learn how to play international drafts, international checkers better and better. Every game starts with an opening, and the same way I'm going to start my course with the first moves, which is the opening of the game. And the topic of this lesson is Symmetrical opening 32-28, 19-23. Probably this is the opening you already play really often, but maybe you don't even know how special it is. Before we start, let's remind what are the main goals, the main tasks we have in the opening of the game. The first one is centralizing pieces. So, in the opening, we want to put our edge pieces into the central part of the board. Second one is let's make our pieces cooperate. So it means that we want our pieces supporting each other. We don't want to create the gaps between our pieces, because that way we would let our opponent to use some tactical options, making some combinations. And of course we want to avoid that. And the third thing is to keep some space, some area to make calm, safe moves. And by that we mean don't be afraid of making exchanges. Exchange in drafts in checkers is absolutely a good, normal thing, because you give one piece, you take one piece, so it's like a gentleman's agreement. Everything's fine, but after exchanges there will be more and more space to make calm and safe moves. And in this opening, symmetrical one, especially, you will see examples of that. Do you know which piece is considered as the weakest one on the board? The one that has the longest way to the central squares and the one that has the only way to get there. By that I mean this one, standing in the corner 46 for white, and this one standing on 5 for black. So if you want to centralize your pieces in the opening of the game, you should develop this piece to the central part of the board. But to do it, you must make some space for it, because 46 must be moved to 41, so it means you must move 41, and 41 must be placed on 37, so we must move 37, and that way we get to this piece number 32. So the most common and very logical move to start the game is here, 32-28 to the center. And I don't know if you know, but in the biggest database of international drafts games from the program Turbo Dumbbase, where is over 800,000 games, this move 32-28 is being chosen in over half of all the games. So over 50% of all the games played in international drafts start with this move 32-28. And the very logical answer from the black pieces is just to do the same, to try to develop the weakest piece on the board, which is here in the corner number 5. So that way, the move I mean is 19-23. And we come back to the third rule of the openings. Don't be afraid of exchanging, because that way you create space, you open the squares for your pieces to develop. That way there are 19 and 14, which are two squares where your pieces from 10 and 5 can get to. And this move, this exchange 1923 played on the first move, is the most common, the most popular answer to this move 32-28 on the first move. But it's not as popular as 32-28, but still the fourth part of all the games follows that way with this exchange. So we can absolutely say that this way of playing symmetrical opening is the most popular way in the world to open the international draughts game. And it makes it the most practical opening in the world, of course, so it must be analyzed at least briefly in the first lesson in the course Practical Checkers. Of course, that way this is also the most popular opening among juniors, among beginners, among lower rated players, because once they know basics about the international draughts and still not knowing more advanced strategies, they are choosing to play that way because they feel it, that way they know how to play the schemes, the patterns that are quite simple to play. But with the time they explore advanced strategies in the international draughts, then also different openings are discovered by them. But now let's analyze what to play in this opening, and I'm going to start with some tricky trap in this opening that I, by the way, learned from analyzing the games of juniors under 10 years old. And this trap is played after this move, 33-28, which, by the way, I don't recommend to play. Why? Because there is already another advice. Here you have the fifth line of your pieces, and my advice is to be patient, not to go to this line immediately. Why? Because after you put some of your pieces on this fifth line, you can see already that this piece is hard to move. Hard to move further, because that way you will be sacrificing something. And it means that you must build your position if you want to centralize your pieces around this one. So now your opponent knows that probably your plan will be to develop that way, supporting this piece 28. So why to give this knowledge to your opponent? Try to be patient, not to go to the fifth line. Maybe your opponent somehow, after your waiting moves, will put another of his piece on the fifth line of his pieces and give you that way some information about his plan. Who knows? So in the opening, when you are being patient and just develop centralizing your pieces, waiting as long as you can until you go to the fifth line, usually is a good idea. But of course, this exchange is playable, it's not a big mistake, that was just a small advice. And after this exchange and after usually different moves, your opponent can follow the scheme that was the plan from the very beginning. So after making the first move 1923, probably the plan of your opponent was to develop the pieces number 10 and 5. So I think we can expect this move to be played 10-14. You can play now 39-33, and your opponent probably will try to move the piece number 5. And that is the moment when tricky trap can be set, by playing 31-26. But I don't recommend setting this trap for your opponent. It can be played only if you know that your opponent plays fast, doesn't know that, and there's huge chance that your opponent will follow on the main diagonal 14-19, because this is a mistake. But this move, setting this trap, is a naive move. It means that you hope that your opponent will make mistake. But if your opponent will not make any mistake, then you are left with this edge piece 26. That probably is not a good one. If your opponent plays something like 18-23, 20-24, this exchange, everything should be better for him. But if he plays 14-19, it gives you a very nice possibility of two variant combination by playing 26-21. And here in one variant you sacrifice 3 pieces, and in second variant you sacrifice 4 pieces. And I think most of your opponents will choose to capture more of your pieces, but in that particular case it is better to capture less. Because the easiest play for black is to play 16-27 if they fall on this trap. Then you sacrifice additional 2 pieces, making so-called bridge shot. You go to the king, and now this king can be destroyed. I also covered this topic in further lesson of the course, but if you want to destroy your opponent's king, and you have many possibilities of doing that, try to use the piece which is the closest one to your first line. Because that way you will leave on the board piece that stands farther, so after catching the king you will have the more developed position. So in this case, which one is the better move, 9 to 14 or 13 to 19? Of course, 9 to 14. White king takes, and this king is captured. The number of pieces is equal, but there is this piece, 29, standing really far, and maybe it could be a problem for black pieces, maybe it can be attacked somehow. But still, this is easier way for black to defend after this trap. Because after playing 1726, now you sacrifice not 2 but 3 pieces to get to the king, but at this moment there are many ways for black to make a mistake. The first one, for example, is to try to catch this king immediately, sacrificing 3 pieces for the king, and white has 1 piece more. It's not the way to play it. You must be patient, you must try to find the cheaper way of capturing this king. Like this move, 11-17, the best one to play in the position. So there is a threat of this loop. After going, for example, here there is this one. After going to 28, it will be captured immediately. After going to 32, there will be another threat here to capture the king. And if it goes to 37, then there is this majority, and the king will be captured. So if you try to go back to 5, black will play 7-11, and there is no way to avoid catching the white king. This move, and after going here, there is this majority again. So better way for white now is to play to 37, and now there is only one way for black to catch this king, to play 17-21, and after this move 36-31, the best way to play is to sacrifice 1 piece, another one, and another one. So at this moment white pieces have 1 piece advantage, but for black the plan is to attack and capture this 122. Before that, of course, they must secure this and then start to attack it. Of course, in the perfect play, this piece cannot be defended by white, but still you generate the position where your opponent can make mistakes, and it gives a calm game for you and not for your opponent. This is how you want to create chances in the drafts game. But as I told you, I don't recommend being naive and make that way of traps. Of course, it's nice and good to prepare some traps, but after making good positional strategic moves without destroying your position. So what I do recommend playing in this moment of the game. Of course, normal development by 37-32. Your opponent probably will play 10-14, 41-37, and now I recommend to play 5-10. Why this move and not 14-19? Because some of your opponents will play with white pieces here, 33-28, and I don't think this is a good move to make. Of course, it's worth to leave this gap there and play this move, 17-21. White takes and black takes, and now you can see that there are some troubles, issues with developing the piece number 46. If it would be moved immediately, building this column, at first glance it looks okay, then black will immediately go to the corner and make this 141 hanging one. And now such exchanges like here are not possible because this black piece is going to the king. So what to play then? If you try, for example, to attack 31-26, then simply, if you are the experienced one and you want to attack, you can go to the outpost and start the ultimate attack of your opponent. But if you are not, you can play calmly 10-14, exchange to the center, and you can see already how well black pieces are developed. And simple plan to make: 4, for example, to move to 19, 6 to 17, 7 to 11, and build all the structures, all the columns in the central part of the board. That would be extremely comfortable game to play for black pieces. If not here, then what? There are 2 different very popular lines of playing in this opening. The first one is to make exchange 34-29, and the second one is to play here 46-41. But I'm going to start with this exchange 34-29, and here you have choice of two different exchanges, and honestly the most popular and the simplest one to play after it is here 39-30, and this is something that I recommend you to play. Of course, black pieces at this moment already moved 2 pieces from the left wing, so I don't expect there will be any exchange because that will be weakening of this wing. And after such attacks like 20-25, you can easily play 44-39 and exchange forward even to 29 to have some simple plans of developing edge pieces to the center of the board. This is not something you can usually see in the games. Of course, something that is worth to remember after this exchange almost all the times, your next move will be 44-39. Of course, I don't mean the situations when you will have some combination to make, etc. Then of course make this combination, but usually this is the next move after this exchange, so it gives you already the predictable plan and you know what to play on the next moves. Also, you make a threat to go to the corner and make this one 10 hanging, so black pieces must react somehow. And the most popular move is here, 14-19. Then you play 44-39 and your opponent develops 10-14. What is really important, you leave this piece here on this square 30. You don't play further to 25. You don't want edge pieces because this one is much more active here, affecting, for example, square number 24, especially in the next lessons I will be explaining it in details. So now good plan to play is this move 32-28. As you remember, our plan is to develop this piece 46, so it's a good idea to open the line for it. If your opponent now plays 18-23, you have a great way of developing the left wing by playing here, make an exchange forward, and your position is really nice and developed. Another option is if your opponent tries, for example, to exchange and try to find some space on the right wing of him, right now the same way like you did, and exchange to 21, it's all okay, you play just this move 37-22. If your opponent attacks, of course you can't move 46 at the moment, but you can make an exchange by playing 33-28. That way you balance your position well, and you are creating this and this spot for two of your pieces. This one for 47 and this one for 46. So after few next moves you have very nice and developed position and you have no weaknesses here. Another option would be if your opponent is not attacking 21-26 few moves ago, but for example plays 7-12. Then of course you can move this 46 to the front, and once again you can see exemplary plan of building your position without weaknesses. Coming back to this moment, let's analyze this line 46-41, and honestly, after logical move 14-19, usually this opening leads to a very aggressive lines with this move 35-30. So in the database that is the most common line and it brings us to the very aggressive position going, for example, like that. I know that many lower rated players are not ready to play that. This is a theoretical line, so I will just skip it. Despite that, of course, there are some other moves, but also good ones and bad ones. The bad one is, of course, 33-28, but I see this move so many times in the beginners games. That way, of course, you are blocking the way for your piece 41. You don't want to disturb your pieces, you want to help your pieces. And now it's logical to play 17-21 to try to take control over this corner 26, and probably the only way not to let that happen is to attack 31-26, and now black pieces can use the majority in a nice way by playing 20-24. White takes, black take two pieces, and now you can't take one, you must take two pieces with this central 38, developing your opponent piece 15 to the center, and you can see once again that there is a very nice position for black pieces with an easy plan to develop pieces into the center more and more. So this move 33-28 was definitely a mistake and it was quite an easy one to use. What to play then? Very popular, of course, still is this exchange, but I do recommend doing it without this move 46-41. Now, for example, after capturing forward to 29, it's quite easy for your opponent to lock you with this structure. This is called a semi-fork lock, and it's already limiting you somehow. You can't play those moves, and maybe you must attack it, but it will be also coming with some threats, so yeah, not many players like it, and I also recommend you not to be locked in your games when you are not so experienced player yet. So it's better to play that direction, but once again, your opponent can try to play to the corner 26. Not to allow that, you can exchange 32-27. Of course, that way is better than doing that and letting your opponent to place his checker in the corner. So please make it with an exchange 32-27, but still there are some nice moves from the black side like 16-21 to make this piece very active one. And now you must play some calm move like this one, because you can't probably make an attack. Always after attack, check if your opponent can't make any other attack, because your opponent already knows what is your next move. And here the best move to play is 18-23. And look, now with having two options of capturing two pieces, black will choose probably to play to 32. And this piece, of course, is possible to attack and retake, but it can be very problematic for you. Let's, for example, look for this continuation. You can see already black's position is nice, and pieces are cooperating. Meanwhile, this is a lonely piece in the central part, and there is a huge gap of pieces, and more pieces are to the right side than to the left side. So there are some weaknesses already. So it's necessary to avoid it with this move, for example. Coming back to this position, if not exchange 32-27, then you can still make an attack 31-26. Of course, once again, check if your opponent is not having some good attack by himself. Here, if your opponent tried to be super aggressive, making this exchange to the outpost 27, that would be a mistake, because this gap is a problematic one. You can play 33-28, and for example, if your opponent tries to prevent you from going to 22 and attacking this piece from behind by playing 11-17, there is a small trap, sacrificing 2 and taking 4 to the king. Another move that is not possible is this one, 18-23, because your opponent attacks having the gap on 14. You can make use of it by going 30-25, and your opponent takes 1, you take 2. It's a good deal for you, of course. So some simple moves like 10-14 are necessary ones to play, there is an exchange, and the game continues. So now you know already some the most popular lines of the most popular opening, symmetrical opening, 32-28, 19-23. And I do recommend here in this position exchanging 34-29 to have the peaceful and calm game. Of course, this lesson is quite different one than others in this course. Why? Because this is the longer one, and this is the one not following the pattern, where I explain the mistake, say how to avoid the mistake, and teach you how to use this mistake when your opponent makes it. But as this course is the practical checkers, it means that we must start with the practical opening like we already have. And in the next lesson of this course, I will show you some bonus extra tip and variant about this symmetrical opening. The one that is really rarely played, but with it you can surprise many of your opponents. So, see you there. Do you want to learn how to play and win at checkers? Visit checkersTV/shop to find the best game courses, ebooks and private lessons with the top coaches. Do you want to play checkers or chess on your phone? I recommend the apps Checkers Online and Chess Online Clash of Kings by CC Games, which have over 100 million downloads. You can find the links in the description. Click on one of the recommended videos to watch the best on the checkersTV channel. Visit checkers.tv to find the best courses, information and news from the checkers world.